Krown Produce supplying select Canadian retailers. Krown Produce, proud sponsors of Canada West Football and Canadian University Countdown on Shaw.
And welcome to another edition of Krown Canadian University Countdown. I'm Jim Mullin. Well, it was a battle for playoff positioning out west, and Mount A is the surprise contender out in Atlantic Canada. Now, the last time I introduced the desk, I introduced one guy, and I got all sorts of flack for it. So I'll let these two guys battle it out ego-wise.
Egos? We don't have egos.
Yeah, no egos here, buddy. I'm equally better than you.
Yes, you are. Every single game at this point in the season is huge, and every single point you can pin on that scoreboard becomes crucial. With playoff possibilities filling the air like a Glade Dewey Meadow plug-in, we head to the land of the rubber end zone, Winnipeg, Manitoba, and University Stadium. Cam Clark getting set to host Billy Green and the T-Birds. Billy telling Coach Olson, "It's time to pick me, Coach," and he probably will. Brian Doby coaching the Bisons. Last ever regular season football game played at University Stadium. Doby didn't like this start. Down 3-zip. Clark drops back, airs it out. Xavier Johnson, but Brian Rideout is there for the T-Birds. Swoops in for the pick, runs into his own man, breaks a couple tackles. Check out who eventually puts him down. That's Clark trying to make up for his mistake. However, the T-Birds could only manage a rouge out of that pick later in the queue, and the Bisons just about turn over the ball themselves. Anthony Coombs bobbles the exchange, does his best Barry Sanders impression to shake the defenders, picks up some yardage, but earns some more as Thomas Harris gets called for the face mask. That's a first down. T-Birds head coach Sean Olson yells at the ref, "What do you mean we're not going out for dinner after the game? Come on!" That's upsetting. A couple plays later, Clark fakes the end around, hands off to Coombs, and he breaks out again, this time for 25 yards. The herd keeps on running, and it pays off. Keenan LaFrance dances his way around the UBC defense, hits the outside, he's gone. That's a 16-yard run for the Major. Bisons take a 7-4 lead. On the kickoff, Nick Boyd's kick sails about 20 yards, but Mika Teal can't come down with the pigskin. Adam Mazawita pounces on the biscuit. Another turnover for the T-Birds. Clark goes back to work. Here he hits Andrew Smith, who looks like Jim Mullin at his Saturday morning yoga class, stretching out to make that grab for a 20-yard pickup. Andrew Berry punches it in. The home side now leads it by 10. Later in the queue, T-Birds think they get a turnover of their own. Jordan Bosa picks off the pass. However, it would all be for nothing as Dominic Mercury would get the call for illegal contact. This referee getting more camera time than me. On the very next play, Anthony Coombs hits the pay dirt, and this 11-yard run, Bisons extend their lead to 17. Penalties just dominating UBC. That penalty parade wouldn't stop there for the T-Birds either. Dying seconds of the queue, Miguel Barker gives Nick Dembski a tug in the end zone. Uh-oh. The orange towel flies in the air 2 plays later. Barry punches in for a second time. Funny enough, UBC got called for an offside. The herd go into the half with a 30-4 lead. Game over, right? Well, not so fast. Green goes airborne for a wide open Jordan Grieve, who hauls in the pigskin. He gets a couple of nice blocks and then outruns the pack. A 98-yard hookup. They would fail on converting the two-pointer, so the lead is now 20. UBC not stopping there. First series out of the fourth, and Green finds Andrew Darkovich, who lunges his way into the end zone. That's 7 more for the Birds. So on the UBC kickoff, they try for an onside kick. The ball goes off a UBC defender's leg, out of bounds. Doby argues the ball was kicked out of bounds. Replay shows the ball going off the UBC defender's leg. No kicking action, so the Zebras converge and rule it UBC ball. Huge breaks for the Birds, as you can see. They would turn that break into more points. Out of the shotgun, Green scrambles, fires to former Vancouver College product, Patrick Bull. That's a 31-yarder. It cuts the Manitoba lead to just 6. 4 minutes later, Green hits Darkovich over the middle. The ball nearly gets picked, but Darkovich rips that pigskin away, takes it to the house. After being down 30-4 at the half, the T-Birds score 27 unanswered points and take a 1-point lead. However, the very next series for the Bisons, Clark hits Coombs for the second major of the day. Manitoba would add a rouge on the ensuing kickoff and take a 6-point lead. T-Birds' next possession, Benny Adewale picks it out of the air, runs it back inside the UBC 10-yard line. Disaster for the flock, or was it? As Manitoba can't get in the end zone, so they go for the field goal. It gets blocked by Nick Boyd, Huge turn of events for the Birds, so they get another kick at the can. Green marches his squad into the Bison zone, calls his own number, takes a wallop, and he goes helmet to helmet with Bison's defender. Check out that replay. Green visibly shook up. Trainers come out to console him. Green asks if his mustache is all right. It's okay. Just make sure that mustache is all right, guys. Come on now. So he steps out and steps into Dominic Bunshoe, who gets one last pass in, but it's broken up. Manitoba escapes with the win in a wild one. With the win, Bisons lock down a playoff berth while UBC's year comes to an end in what was a difficult season for the Bluebirds.
Calgary, Regina. Late in the first queue, Dinos already with a rouge on the board, but Eric Daleski's pass gets picked by Joey Dwyer, who takes the ball from the Calgary 54, and he's off, rumbles his way downfield into the end zone. That is a pick six, Dwyer's first thievery of the year, puts the home side up early on the nation's second-ranked team. The ensuing kickoff goes bad for the Dinos as the Rams recover the ball, but it's all for nothing. Very next play for the Rammers, and Zach Olenek gets plucked by Dr. Kasama. Don't worry, everyone. Yes, he's a doctor. Calgary would do nothing with the pick. Shift to midway through the second. Daleski to Richard, don't call me Dick Schneider, who gets nailed by Brady Ollie. The pigskin pops loose, and it's recovered by Daniel Noss. Massive turnover. Regina makes it work for them, too, as Taylor Wandler boots this 33-yarder. Rams up by 9. Late in the third, Dinos kicker Johnny Mark, well, he misses the mark. Jamir Walker hauls in the botched field goal, and he puts on the afterburners. Jaywalk goes for 86 yards down to the Calgary 31. Sounds like he could be a member of Jersey Shore, but Regina could only salvage a rouge. A few minutes later, Andrew Buckley behind center for the Dinos, and he hooks up with Jim Mullen's man crush, Brett Blasco. That's 7 for the visitors. 9 minutes of the game. Buckley marches his side into the Ram zone, fires a strike that gets picked by Justin Edrelin, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you slay the Dinos. The Rams solidify themselves a home playoff date and break a 10-game losing streak to Calgary. With the loss, the Dinos snap their 16-game regular season winning streak.
How dare you reference Dick Schneider? Saskatchewan, Alberta. Let's head to the City of Champions, shall we? The Golden Grams and the Hungry Huskies start things out in the second queue. Chase Bradshaw hooks up with Shane Buchanan, and the Huskies decide they like that play. It works. Let's do it again. So Bradshaw fakes the handoff, looks left and hits Charlie Power. Power sprawls out like a young Dave Sapunjus and crosses that line. It's 17-3 Saski.
Great reference right there.
There you go. GB ball, and Curtis Dell finds Dylan Prince for a 21-yard pickup. The green and yellow move the chains into K9 territory. Dell then finds the artist again from 10 yards out. Prince squeaks it in. That would get Alberta within 7, but that's as close as they would come. They lose this one 27-10.
Does he just have a symbol on the back of his jersey?
Something like that. Bryce McCall with another superb game. 3 tackles, 1 interception, ties the CIS record, 4 picks. Up next for the Huskies, UBC, and you can find that game right here on Shaw, while Alberta takes on the Regina Rams. Over to the board we go. Calgary still sits atop the table at 6-1, followed by Regina at 5-2. This could be a huge weekend because, as mentioned, Calgary faces a decent test hosting the 4-3 Bisons, while Regina gets a bit of a break hosting the winless Alberta Golden Bears.
An Ontario license plate tells us that it's yours to discover. However, they should change that statement as it may be yours to discover, but only if Kyle Quinlan says so. Mac looking for its first undefeated season since 2003, and also looking to be the only team in the CIS to have run the table this year. Some nastiness early on. G-Hawks Josh Pure levels Zach Ishmael with his helmet-to-helmet block. Ishmael, well, he's seeing Tweety Birds. His day would be over. Tough loss for the Maroon one. However, when you got Kyle Quinlan behind center, well, things, they tend to work out for you. Already up 3-zip, Quinlan calls his own number, takes it up the gut, and pinballs his way into the end zone. How tough is this kid? Looking like a modern-day Randall Cunningham. Relentless run from the nation's top pivot. Mac up 10 Cobb. The Marauders' defense would follow suit with the offense, swarming Laurier all day long. The G-Hawks managed just 28 total yards in the first half. Brutal! Quinlan and company kept the pedal to the metal. Here he finds Brad Fushisato. That's a first down. Couple plays later, Quinlan channels Randall once again, fakes the handoff and narrowly squeezes himself inside the pylon. That's his second rushing touchdown of the day. Up 17-0 now. Quinlan makes some history as he hits Josh Vanderwoord for the major. That's Quinlan's 60th career passing touchdown, passing Ben Chapdelaine to set a new McMaster record. This just in, Ryan, Kyle Quinlan, yeah, he's a badass.
He's not bad.
Even the Mac Marauder would agree, that is if he could talk, because, you know, he's a mascot and all. Mac lays the boots to those G-Hawks, blanking them for yet another win. The Marauders will take next week off as they have a bye in the first round of the OUA playoffs. They could face Laurier in the Yates Cup semifinal. The G-Hawks play Queens next week in the quarterfinal.
Western Ottawa. Well, the GGs did continue to impress by putting up an excellent fight against the Purple Ponies. Will Finch didn't have the greatest of days through the air, but was a beast on the ground. 136 yards in a major. Meanwhile, Chris, don't call me John Daly, had an unreal day with 11 tackles, a sack, and a forced fumble.
Guelph, York. Guelph finishes its season with a 7th straight win. Rob Farquharson rushes for over 100 yards for a 5th time this year. The Griffins will sit out next week as they have earned a bye for the first week of the playoffs. York's season is over, failing to make the postseason.
Well, it was a season to forget for Waterloo, but at least they ended on a high note. They knock off the Lancers in convincing fashion. Big props to the Waterloo defense. They picked Austin Kennedy 4 times. They picked backup QB Andrew Downer twice. They also forced 2 fumbles on the day and recovered both. See you next season in Waterloo.
Queens wraps up the regular season with a win over the Varsity Blues. Ryan Gramberg and Gio Aprile, both with big games to wrap up their CIS regular season careers. Toronto, they missed the postseason for a 17th straight year. So Mac keeps its perfect season intact, as we were saying earlier, and earns that first round bye, as do those Griffins. Windsor and Western will face off in one OUA quarterfinal, while Laurier will travel to Queens in the other.
What do you think of when you hear the words Concordia and Sherbrooke? Lemon iced tea crystals? I'm not sure why, but that's what comes to mind. The other thing that comes to mind is, oh God, this should be an absolute slaughtering. All right, here we go. The Vere-Or took no time jumping out to the lead in this one. Opening kickoff, and it's blast off for Felix Boudia as he takes it outside, finds some room. The first-year kick returner goes 110 yards for the major. 7-0 Green Guys. The D would get into the scoring for the home side as well as Stingers pivot Reed Quest handoff to Mike Donnelly gets fumbled. Emmanuel Tiro scoops up the pigskin, rumbles it in for the major. That made it 17-0, not even 5 minutes into the game. The Stingers would respond. Quest hits Jesse McPhail. Looks like he hit the turf first, but Touche gets called by the Zebras. Bad call. Concordia's on the board. They would add more to that board as well. Quest over the middle to Jamal Henry, who reaches down for the shoestring grab. That's a 32-yarder. Vere-Or lead down to just 6. However, Jeremy Doyon Rock would hit his favorite target, Sebastian Blanchard, in the back of the end zone. Put another 7 up for the Greenies, lead now at 13. Concordia goes 2-0, and on its next series, forced to punt. Boudier makes them pay once again. This time a 62-yard punt return. The freshman having a career day. He'll be popular at school. Sherbrooke now up 20. Then it's time for a little Goulet. Gabriel gets on the score sheet, hauling in this major. Oh girl, that dress is so scandalous. In the fourth Q, Stingers well behind in this one, but the interception return by Chris Robertson is worth noting. That's his second pick of the game, 4th in 2 games, and second pick 6 in consecutive weeks. Not bad. It's all for nothing though, as the Vere-Or extend their winning streak to 3 games. Doyon Rock hits 18 of 31 targets for just 190 yards, 2 touchdowns. Nothing amazing there in the stats, but it worked. It was just enough. Coming up next for Sherbrooke, they've got McGill, while Concordia has a date with Laval.
McGill, Montreal, right off the get-go, Dalen Karpowski takes the handoff for the red and white and gets shut down. An excellent effort that would lead to a change of possession, and that's bad news because the Caribans were like Jim Mullin at the club on a Friday night. Well, they were red hot. From 20 out, Alexander Nadeau-Pius hits JC Morin Faneuf in the end zone. Pius now from 49 yards out hits Alexander Forche Labonte in the palms. That's where you want to put it. And he's gone. 30 blank after 2 Qs. A new half, a new beginning. Well, not so much. Ryan Bondi sets back for McGill and takes a lick. Ball pops out. The big man, Mathieu Girard, picks it up, and he heads to the promised land. Look at those pink shoes. Pretty sure he stole those out of Jim Mullin's closet. I know I've borrowed them a couple of times. He's taken down at the 10. Give him an A for effort, not for the play, but for the shoes. Montreal crushes McGill 44-0. Hughes had an excellent day, hitting 20 of 23 moving targets, 305 yards, and those 3 touchdowns. Montreal gets a tune-up before the playoffs, taking on Bishops next weekend.
Bishops, Laval. This was an absolute stomping. As you can see, the Rouge Or had their way with Bishops. The big man on campus for Laval, Guillaume Bourassa, he ran the ball for 122 yards and a major. Even with the loss, though, the Gators still control their own playoff destiny thanks to the number 4 Montreal Carabins beating McGill. Over to the standings we go. Laval still at the top with their win this past weekend. They've got company, though, as the Carabins are right there with them at 7-1. Sherbrooke has a hold on the number 2 spot, while McGill and Concordia can start gearing up for the 2013 season.
Mount Allison Saint Effects kick this off with a fantastic catch from Josh Blanchard. Mount A pivot, Brandon Lay rolls to his right and launches it up. Blanchard falling backwards, but he's able to haul in the grab. Outstanding catch. That made it 14-4 for the Mounties. Right before the end of the half, Donovan Saunders takes the punt return, and he goes off for pay dirt. That's an 83-yard return. Mount A go into Antigonish and take the win while earning a playoff berth.
Home of the Cruise.
Nice reference. First-year running back Jordan Botel with a big day for the Mounties. The X-Men will get one last shot to make the playoffs as they face the St. Mary's Huskies this Saturday with a playoff spot on the line.
St. Mary's, Acadia, not the most exciting game of all time based on the scoreboard. The Axemen improved to 6-1 while the Huskies dropped to 2-5. Kyle Graves looked mediocre at best in the win, completing less than 50% of his tosses, along with 1 pick. Acadia will travel to Sackville, New Brunswick this weekend to take on Mount Allison in what is a nothing game for either side.
All right, we finish off the show with the AUS standings. Acadia, of course, reigning supreme in the conference. Mount A has punched its ticket to the dance, as we said earlier. Well, we look forward to that big battle this coming weekend between the X-Men and those Huskies.
Let's go back to that prom date thing. I went home alone voluntarily.
That's not what she said, bud.
No, she didn't. Mrs. Mullin was a beautiful woman. Coming up, Jim, what do we got?
I hate you both. When we return, a former Redman who's now a horseman.
Krown Produce supplying select Canadian retailers. Krown Produce, proud sponsors of Canada West Football and Canadian University Countdown on Shaw.
Hey, welcome back to Krown Canadian University Countdown. I'm Ryan Sullivan. It's that time once again, the Pro Profile, and this week we decided to head over the Rockies, over to Cowtown, and check in with Mr. Randy Chevrier. I hope you like JPEGs. If you do, you'll love this feature. He's spent 12 years in the pro game, 7 of which have been with the Stamps. Before Calgary, though, he bounced between the Jacksonville Jaguars, Dallas Cowboys, Cincinnati Bengals, and New York Jets of the NFL. He even spent a bit of time playing with the now defunct NFL Europe with the Barcelona Dragons. Randy Chevrier has been around the game for a long time, and he says there's a huge difference in the caliber of athletes coming out of college these days. He says the training regimens were almost non-existent during his time at McGill.
Well, for me, when I played at McGill, we didn't have a full-time strength program, and a lot of what I had to do at McGill was being able to muster the guys around me and getting in the gym and the training and this and that.
Chevrier notes that the contrast not only between the players but between their schools is noticeable. The ones that spend are the ones that succeed.
I would say the development programs are a lot better. I would say that schools in the CIS are devoting a little bit more of the budget to the football programs. I think programs like Laval and Montreal and U of C, I know in Regina have got a good program. They've sort of started pushing other teams to get better, and over the last 10 years we've seen quite an improvement in the level of play and in the level of players coming out. The last couple of Vanier Cups have been phenomenal. And, I think the awareness is out there that it's a good product.
Well, I've got good news and I've got great news, and they're both the same. The Beast is back in the house. Mr. Conor Hammond is here, and he's going to take us inside the CIS.
Well, you know, during the highlight packs, you already mentioned the hot play of Chris Robertson of Concordia, who's on an unreal tear. Made me think of two other DBs who have mastered the art of picking off passes. And it just so happens they both play in Saskatchewan. We've seen it at the professional level. Shut down defensive backs turning games around for their squads. Well, it's no different in the CIS, where two ball hawks in particular are causing opposing offenses fits. The best in the West are Regina Rams DB Jamir Walker and the University of Saskatchewan's Bryce McCall. They are the princes of picking off passes. For Walker, his ability to play at different spots on the field has gained the trust of his coaches.
I think that throughout the years I've showed them I can play. Like, I could play on the short side, weak side, anywhere really. And they have trust in me, I guess, and they have confidence in me, and I have confidence in myself too. So that plays a huge role in allowing me to make plays.
Both Walker and McCall came into the year within striking distance of the all-time career interception record. McCall has since tied it with his second pick of the year in a win against Alberta. Through all the attention surrounding the record, McCall is quick to praise his teammates.
There's been a lot of great teammates I've had over the past four seasons, and I mean that's the greatest asset anyone can ask for is 11 other guys out there hustling around to the ball and looking to make things happen. So it's just helped me become the player I am and helped me become the best football player I can be.
If you look up and down the CFL rosters, the position of DB is dominated by imports of the NCAA, a trend that Walker and McCall will look to break when their CIS careers are over. While some defensive backs tend to be brash, Walker is more of the mellow type, especially before a big game.
I just try and stay calm. I've never been the guy to jump around before games or on road trips or anything like that. But I try and keep the younger guys who are traveling with us calm too, and tell them what to expect and how to prep for things. And I just visualize the plays I try and make before each snap of the ball.
There's an old saying: defense wins championships. Come November for two Saskatchewan schools, we'll see if that rings true.
All right, that again inside the CIS. Thank you very much, Connor. Now we come to one of my favorite parts of the show, the Roundtable, of course. We welcome back in Jim Mullin, Andrew Wadden. He's given the pistols. A little premature with this.
Just try to sneak it in on you
It's,
there.
all right.
You
It's Shooter
caught it.
McGavin.
Yeah, I guess so. It's your thing now. Donovan, don't do the pistols, please. Donnovan Bennett, live from the Score in Toronto. Thanks for coming out, Donovan. Much appreciated. Let's start things out talking about the Score, of course. Television coverage. A lot of rumors swirling around the internet right now, I should say, about what's going to happen when Rogers moves in over there. What will happen to University Rush?
Well, I mean, that I don't know. The only people who really know what's going to happen are wearing, $4,000 suits in their, heads of Rogers. And even them, I'm not sure if they're certain. This is what I do know. There was a lot of, I guess, conjecture would be the best word when the University Rush blog, which was, much appreciated by CIS fans, kind of shut down. And here's kind of the X's and O's and why that happened. The blog and any digital space that the Score is a part of was spun out into a different company owned by the Score's previous owners. The Score right now, as the sale has been final and the shareholders have signed off on it, Rogers specifically owning it and what they can and will do, that's not final because the CRTC is yet to approve the sale. So pretty much the company is in limbo. It's in trust, if you will, until it's CRTC approved and they can move forward. So there's no real culmination between the blog being shut down and what Rogers' plans are with University Rush. That to think that there's a line between there is kind of a misnomer. Really, all that it is the digital space is owned by someone else. Therefore, it doesn't make sense for them to promote TV properties. The TV property in time will be owned by Rogers, and they'll decide at that point what they'll do with it. But for us, as far as the University Rush crew, we're still moving forward. We still have games. We still have content on our air. And for us, it's just like an audition of the product to show, hopefully, Rogers and their investors that it's something worthwhile.
If Rogers chooses to step back from university coverage, I think there's a huge void there in the marketplace. And I think somebody at some point has to step up, with a Canadian-based TV channel that's dedicated to amateur sport, dedicated to the CIS, dedicated to Olympic sports, maybe even throw the CFL in there once a week as well. I think there's room for that in our channel universe right now.
Jim, to your point, I do agree, but I would just say to that, competition is what's best for the marketplace, and if CIS sports and the OUA specifically is something worthwhile, there'll be a competition on bidding for its services. Radio Canada does a great job in the queue. I'm not going to speak for Rogers, but they've shown a propensity in the past to give some love to amateur sport. They've done a great job on Friday nights with their OHL hockey coverage. So they could, for all the same reasons they do that, look at the CIS and say, we could do something similar, especially since they're set up regionally throughout the country.
All right, unfortunately, we have to wrap this segment with you, Donnovan. We have to switch the Skype feed, but thank you very much for joining us. And as always, a nice Twitter pump up for yourself. Where can we find you?
At Donnovan Bennett, and I'm looking forward to doing the quarterfinals this week. Windsor taking on Western. Should be a good one, and maybe next time I'll even be able to pull out the pistols like Jim for you.
There you go. Sounds good. Thanks a lot, Donnovan Bennett from The Score. Now we're going to switch things up. From acrofoot.com, our good buddy JP Shoiry on the line. All right, JP, now the OUA has said no to McGill transferring over for next season. Kind of get your thoughts on this. What does that mean for the RCQ?
I think it's great news for the RCQ. They keep their conference as it is with 6 teams. And McGill right now is, they've had a rough season, but definitely a program on the rise. Lots of talent, both on offense and on defense. Young talent. I'm talking about Shaquille Johnson, Louis Mota, some young guys. And I wouldn't be surprised to see McGill as the top Anglophone team in the queue next year.
Ooh, now, Mr. Wadden, you have some interesting thoughts on this as well?
Well, I just don't see why McGill would benefit from going into the OUA. I mean, I'd put them in the bottom category with the likes of Toronto, Waterloo, York, and then, of course, McGill, and then Carleton even coming in there as well. There's a real divide when it comes to the OUA in terms of the teams. You've got the Max. You've got Guelph now, who has got to be put into that conversation. And, of course, Western is always there. Queens then gets that second tier with Laurier and Windsor. So I just don't see why it would benefit McGill to go into the OUA. I think they're better in the RCQ. It keeps the balance better. And, of course, with Carleton coming in, there's already going to be one whipping boy in the conference next year. You don't need another.
Balance in the RSEQ. The only balance is that the Francophone teams beat the crap out of the Anglophone teams on a regular basis. JP, the number that you had the last 33 games, is it, that the Francophone teams have defeated the Anglophone teams?
That's right. 33 straight games.
That is awful. Quite frankly,
Tell
that
us
is
how you
terrible.
really feel. Tell us how you really feel.
Well, and I'm sure the Anglophone teams feel as awful as I do about it. But I think when it comes right down to it, there needs to be more Francophone teams. The question is, what Francophone schools are there out there, JP? I think UQAM is maybe one. I don't think they have a place to play, though. Is there any private investment that could start another team up? I mean, really, you're looking at $6 to $8 million to start a football program up. It's not cheap.
Well, you would love to see another Francophone team. You're talking about UQAM. There's Trois-Rivières as well, Chicoutimi. There's been talks for years, but really there's no really team that wants to expand as of now. So what you need is to have those Anglophone teams. You need the programs to really get behind their teams. Try to find more money and get more funding into those teams, better installations and get better in recruiting.
All right, JP, thanks again for joining us. Much appreciated. From acrofoot.com. Twitter, my friend, what do you got?
That's right, at JP Shoiry, follow me, guys.
Let's go over to the big board now, see how we're looking after another great week in the CIS. As expected, McMaster sitting at the very top, which is a shocker, really. No, it's not in the slightest. But from all of us here at the Shaw Tower in Vancouver, for Jim Mullin, Andrew Wadden, I'm Ryan Sullivan. Now here's the games of the week.
Krown Produce supplying select Canadian retailers. Krown Produce, proud sponsors of Canada West Football and Canadian University Countdown on Shaw.